In this video, I'm going to talk inflation and really just how vicious it can be, and we're going to do this with some current events. I understand sometimes when you learn about inflation or economic terms, it can seem very just detached from the real world as you read, the bolded definitions in some textbook or something. But no, we're going to use real world events because I also know, and thanks by the way to your feedback, that these current event videos are also pretty popular. So I'm going to use current event topics to illustrate just a general economic idea that is and should be applied to your personal life, assuming you're trying to budget out wealth building and money and all that. So the way it works, and the current event news is that wages have been rising. In fact, wages have gone up very nicely, and a lot of the jobs reports right now, or excuse me, the headlines in regards to the job report are using the word strong, and they're using similar terminology to display how much wages have risen. And I'm not going to disagree with the word strong, but there's an asterisk, and the asterisk is, well, strong compared to what? So strong compared to other points in economic history? Sure, I would agree with that term. That's not a lie at all. Strong compared to maybe last year? Yeah, absolutely. But what about in a real world sense, in a sense that matters? Has wage growth been strong? And no, it hasn't. Because, well, as you're going to see with some basic math that good news is we all learn how to do in first or second grade, you're going to be able to see the problem here. But let's just first get to this article. And, everyone would agree, yeah, rising wages are good news for workers. Of course, nobody's going to refute that at all. So, okay, well, how much did the wages rise? And right here, wages have picked up by 5.6% over the past year. So 5.6%, that's going to be the first number that we need to care about, which is wage growth. Now, again, compared to other points in history, so right here, in fact, I'll get it. The report showed a far quicker pace than the 2 to 3% annual pay gains that were typical during the 2010s. Okay, so there's nothing factually misleading there. 5.6%, it definitely is stronger compared to the 2 to 3% that were occurring during the 2010s. So, okay, right there, that's fine. But let's compare it to actual numbers that I would argue you probably care more about from a day-to-day point of view as you go to the store or just shop around to buy whatever you need. And that would be the word that I'm sure you've heard, and if you read the title, you saw here, inflation. What about compared to inflation? And shout out to the New York Times here, a very cool interactive chart here, and you can just see all these numbers over the course of the past several decades. But as of now, the key number is 7.9%. That is the current inflation rate, if you will. And as far as, okay, well, let's see how wage growth stands up to inflation compared to that. Is it still strong? And like I said, this is not complicated at all. Everybody can do this. Well, I think everybody can use a calculator. I think everybody can do subtraction. But what was the wage growth? Well, 5.6%, right? That is the number that some are proclaiming is strong, which, as I concede, in some regards, yeah, it is, depending on what you compare it to. But in comparison with inflation, let's see what happens. So the way you do that is you take that wage growth, and then you have to subtract it against whatever inflation is. So in this case, minus 7.9%. And what does that come out to? Well, right there, 2.3%, but it's not actually 2.3%, right? Because there is that negative sign, negative 2.3%, meaning, yeah, people are still behind. That's great. They're making more money, but prices has risen that much more, and they're not actually keeping up. They're literally falling further and further behind, which I would not argue is strong. So yeah, strong if you're going to want to compare it to 2010s, but also in the 2010s, inflation wasn't at 7.9%. So just keep that in mind whenever you're doing your numbers and all that. You got to remember that, okay, so if for an example, if you're going to say, okay, so I can factor in making 5.6% more, oh, wow. But if you don't factor in that inflation, your numbers are going to be coming out and misleading you with whatever goals that you may have. So just be aware, you got to factor those two together, and you can't just take blanket statements such as something is strong. You got to dig a little deeper and always ask strong or weak. Well, weak compared to what? Because everybody can try to, mold and massage, headlines to say or certain things, but you got to always deal or, peel back that extra little layer and just compare to what? Whatever word, compared to what? And in this situation, nothing complicated, just a basic subtraction equation, and you can see that, okay, wage growth is not strong compared to, inflation. But that's all ultimately how it works. That's what's ultimately going to make the most difference in your life, is how are your wages compared to the growth rate of inflation. And when you can start to fine tune those things, you're going to be in a much better spot, better in regards to a much more realistic spot. Because sure, maybe you're like, oh great, now I can't afford that, but at least you know that you can't afford it before you can go and buy something, right? I'd rather have that figured out before you actually put the money in play. So yes, maybe not better in the sense of, well, geez, now I can't get it, but better in the sense of you're going to have a full picture and full understanding of it. So we'll see what happens, and depending on the comments and all of those statistics, I can continue to follow this stuff if you would like. So I continue to ask if you enjoy these current event videos. Also, where I try to bake in a learning lesson too, so you can see how this stuff you can look through it in a kind of a practical, real world way. Then hit that like button, leave a comment below, even if it's just saying thanks, hi. But that's how I'm going to gauge whether or not these we'll call it dual education and current event videos, if I should keep doing them or not. But I thank you and for your feedback in advance. But yeah, you now have an idea of what's continuing to go on with the wage growth and inflation. So we'll see how things continue to change over the coming months. First off, thanks so much for watching the entire video. Real quick, before you go, I want to invite you to a live webinar, web class, training, workshop, online event, whatever you want to call it, but it will be me live revealing to you what I've discovered that has allowed me to transform myself from being an employee to being my own boss, including how I had only one losing day out of 73 days in total. I'm going to cover 3 keys that have helped me unlock profitable consistency within the markets. The first key is super weird, but in a productive type of way. The second key is super awesome because it quite literally is wired into our DNA as humans, making it very easy to use. But in a cruel way, this becomes a pitfall for many traders. I'll explain it all though, including how to avoid the pitfall that it creates for some. And yeah, the third key, when you hear it, sounds way too good to be true, but it's not, and I'll show you how it all works. Then at the end, I open it up for a question and answer session that is, again, totally live. Even if you can't make the live session, please still sign up as it will be recorded, and you can go back and watch the replay that I will send you. Click the image on the screen or click the link down in the description box so you can get the date and time and claim your spot, which I should note is limited due to the fact that this truly is a live event. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll be seeing you soon.